Hi friends, author Diana Del Russo here with another writing tip for you. Last week, if you tuned in, it was a writing tip on inspiration and ideas and where those come from and how to get those flowing. Today we're going to talk about writing a story. We're going to talk about creating a story and how do we know what we want to do there? Well, the first thing you might want to think about is your reader and what age group are you planning to write for. There's a lot of different charts online that I've researched and looked at that tell you different age groups, different reader levels. They will help you with the grade level or the age level of the child. And since I am a children's author, this tip is really about writing for children, and so that's very helpful. It also tells you the word counts that are acceptable for the different age groups, and it also tells you the illustration page count. So these are all things you want to consider when writing for a child, whether it's going to be a preschooler, whether it's going to be a elementary student, middle school reader. So this information is critical, that you know who your audience is, who you plan to write for, so that you can plan accordingly. You want to make sure that the content that you use, that the subject matter that you use is going to be age appropriate. And again, there's plenty of charts, plenty of information online to help you figure that out. Once you have gathered your ideas and you are trying to decide, okay, how am I going to tell this story? What am I going to do? You might want to think about it in steps. Every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So you might want to think about your story in those steps. You might want to think about how you will begin your story. Do you know where it takes place? Is it a fantasy? Is it more in today's world? What are you trying to present to the reader? Mine are fantasy based, so they are, pretty much the sky's the limit. You can do whatever you feel is appropriate in that age group when you're writing for fantasy. If you're writing more literally, if you're writing more for what their world is right now, then you might want to be a little more specific about location. Characters, we're going to talk about that in another video, but right now you want to, again, beginning, middle, end, you want to think about your characters in that, introduce them in the beginning, bring them to the middle of maybe your climax where they're facing challenges or there's some issues that they need to resolve, and then work through those. And when you get to the end, obviously you want to wrap up the story. You want to make sure you don't leave a loose end, unless you're going to be writing a series, and you might want a little bit of a loose end to continue on to the next book, just depending on what you want to do. One tip I will say, one thing that helped me on my very first book, I published that book in 2007. That was The Magical Journey. And one of the things I did when it was just in rough draft form, just handwritten on notebook paper, and my husband and I went to many elementary schools, or actually preschools, and we ended up reading the story to the kids. And I asked the students, I asked the kids, their opinion of the book. I asked them what they liked most, what they didn't like. A couple kids didn't like the original ending, and so basically I changed the ending of that book before I published it based on what those kids recommended, what they liked and didn't like. So there again, it's just a helpful thing to do. You may have children of your own that you can bounce the ideas off of, or bounce the story off of. I had no small kids at home at the time. You may want to find your neighbor's child or your friend's child and read the story with them and see if it's age appropriate to whatever age group they are. There's different things you can do. You don't have to go it alone. You don't have to try to figure it all out yourself. I mean, you can, any friends that are teachers or social media now, you can reach out to, and you can find, like rent a kid, you can find a child to sit down and read your story to and get their feedback. And I just felt that was very helpful. And again, I did change my ending based on their likes and dislikes. So that's something to think about. The other thing I will say that I found in writing my books is when I'm reading I'll write it, I'll write a paragraph, let's say, or I'll write a page, and I'll read that back to myself. Well, if I read it silently within my own head, it sounds one way. And then if I read it out loud, it can sound different. So I will strongly recommend that as you go through your, pages, as you go through page by page, and maybe don't wait till you get to the end of the book, I guess is what I'm saying. As you're going through the story, read it out loud. Play it back to yourself, read it out loud, so you will see where there's any stumbling blocks, as far as, is that child going to read smoothly and then all of a sudden it's going to stumble on certain words or a sentence. You'll know that as you read it back to yourself out loud. So reading your story out loud is very helpful. And again, if it does stumble a little bit, you might want to change a word here or there. You might want to change a complete sentence, paragraph, something to keep it rolling smoothly so that that reader can go ahead smoothly. Another tip I will say is that if you are not feeling energetic, if you're not feeling excited, if you're not feeling happy about your book as you're writing it, keep in mind that that child reading it, or that parent reading it to that child, they're probably feeling the same way. So if you're not really excited to turn the page and see what happens next, then they probably won't either, and they may not make it through the whole book. So you want to keep in mind that your book should be exciting. It should be fun for you as you're going along. And for me, I'll stop writing for the day or the night, and I'll be thinking about it, and something might hit me, and I'll just jot down some notes like, okay, maybe I should add this, or maybe I should change that. And then maybe the next day when I go back and look at it, I can look at those notes and go back and see what makes sense and what doesn't, and make those changes. Sometimes I need to step away from my writing. I don't know if you're the same way, but sometimes stepping away from it and then coming back to it later is a fresh look, and it may sound different when I read it out loud, and so there again I might make some changes. So it's not uncommon for other writers that I hear, and myself included, to write several drafts. You may write one draft just out of pure emotion and excitement because you're really anxious to get it out there, and then you realize when you walk away and come back, you need to create a second draft, and you need to make some changes, or create a third draft, and so on. I usually get to about my third draft, and then I'm usually calling on a friend, or a friend who's a teacher, or someone like that they can look at it, and they can be my first professional kind of editor to go through it and see what I might have crossed up. A couple common things that do get crossed up when you're writing is tense, verbiage tense, whether it is past tense or present tense, and then how you tell the story in which person, whether it's first person, third person. If you don't know what I mean, then I would highly recommend that you do some research on writing verbiage tense and telling a story first person, second person, third person, however you want to tell it. It's really important to not cross those up, and I have a tendency of doing that, and so it helps me to read it out loud. That usually corrects it, or to have a second set of eyes, have another person, my husband or a friend, read it, because they'll say, well, you told the whole story, you're telling the whole story as the narrator, and all of a sudden you're telling it like the character's telling it. So now we miss signals here for the reader, and we don't want to have those miss signals or cross signals for the reader. So we want to make sure that whatever we start with at the beginning of the story, and however we tell it with a narrator or as the character telling the story, that continues throughout. So those are just things to watch out for. I hope some of these things were helpful for you. I hope you enjoyed some of these tips, and maybe they're things you thought of before, maybe you haven't. Again, a lot of my research is done online, used to be done in the library. You can do that. Plenty of research material is out there for you. And again, check in here next week. I will do another little video like this with writing tips, and I think we're going to focus on characters. How do we create those characters? How many characters do we need? What type of characters? How do we name our characters? Just different things about the character in general. So I hope you'll come back next Wednesday for another writing tip. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and like it, and then also make your comments. If there's certain topics you would like me to talk about, please put that in the comments below, and I'd be happy to do that. And then also, if you would like to go through my videos, I have several videos, or not just writing tips, that's just one series. I have a whole nother series of compilation videos with cute animals and kids, and those are a lot of fun to watch. And then I also have a train series of videos that my dad had built trains when he was still with us, and we had videotaped those, so those are nice, those are fun to look at. I always call it, Billsville, because it was his little creation of the little town, but the buildings are cute and everything, so I hope you'll take a look at that. Anyway, there's plenty of videos. There's over 25 videos on my YouTube. I hope you'll take a look at that. Give them all, the ones that you do like, give those a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe. Please remember to subscribe, and share my videos with your friends. I appreciate that. I am also on all the social media platforms. Well, maybe not all, because every day there's a new one, but I'm on several. So if you like Instagram, if you like Facebook, Twitter, if you like LinkedIn, Pinterest, I'm on all those sites, so you can find me there. And I try to do something different and fresh all the time. On with Instagram, matter of fact, tomorrow, on Instagram on Mondays, please remember to check in for Magical Memories. And that's where I'll share a picture of some magical memory I've had. And I'd love you to share a picture of your magical memory as well, so we can all share that in that fun and that joy. And then we have the writing tips here on YouTube on Wednesdays. And then on Fridays, join me live on Facebook every Friday at 4:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we will do some fun topics on there as well. So thank you for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Until next time, bye-bye.